This is the latest iPad mini. It takes design cues from the iPad Pro and iPad Air and puts it all in a super tiny package. So for the last few weeks, I replaced my 12.9-inch iPad Pro with this super tiny iPad mini. And here's how it went. Let's get started. The iPad mini comes with the iPad mini itself, a USB Type-C to USB Type-C charging cable, a USB Type-C charging brick, and some documentation. The first thing you'll notice once it's out of its box is how small it is. Well, yeah, that's kind of a given, right? It's in its name. But what I mean by that is I can actually take my hand and stretch it out and cover the iPad from side to side and top to bottom. And because of this size, it gives the iPad mini a ton of advantages and some disadvantages compared to the iPad Air, which only costs $100 more. But we'll discuss that more in a little bit. The iPad mini 6 now has a fingerprint sensor at the very top right side of the iPad, and the power buttons were moved from the sides to the top left of the iPad, which at first you might think to yourself, it's a really strange decision, but they did this to make space for Apple Pencil 2 support on the right-hand side. The volume buttons now also adapt to the orientation of your iPad. Now the volume goes up if it's on the right side of the tablet or on the top, depending on whichever orientation you're in. And the iPad mini also got a massive redesign with a USB Type-C port, squared off edges, and a front facelift that took all the excess fat from the forehead and chin fat and slapped them onto the sides. It now has speakers on the top and bottom. That sounds pretty good, but lacks a bit of bass, especially when compared side by side with the larger iPads. But this is because this device is smaller, so less room for booming sound. It's good enough for your usual random YouTube videos, podcasts, or Twitch streams. The front-facing 12-megapixel wide-angle camera has the new center stage feature that lets the camera constantly stalk you and follow you around while you're on video calls. It definitely gives you the flexibility to be able to move around more and still know that you'll at least be in frame for your video calls. Honestly, it's a really useful feature if you're in a work from home environment or a learn from home environment. If it is annoying you too much, you can easily turn it off in the settings menu. Beyond the front facing camera and behind it is a singular 12 megapixel rear camera, which takes decent enough photos. Of course, this is the iPad mini. There's no crazy camera features like you'd see on the iPad Pros, but really this is just your bog standard 12 megapixel average iPad camera. And the last notable physical difference between the old iPad mini and the new one is that there's no longer a headphone jack. So if you still want an iPad with a headphone jack, sadly, the only one that still has it is the base model iPad that starts at $329. The iPad mini, iPad Air, and iPad Pro models don't have it anymore. So let's quickly talk about the display. Something people have pointed out and noticed is that the screen has this jello effect, where if you move around the display too fast, it almost looks like it's kind of slanting. To be completely honest with you, it does happen. It's definitely there. And now that you know this, you'll probably see it happening too if you purchase one. It is a bit annoying, but it doesn't take anything else away from the display. And in day-to-day usage, while it's there, you don't really think about it. Now let's talk about what's it like using the iPad mini as a daily driver machine. I tried using the iPad mini as a replacement for my 12.9-inch iPad Pro, and believe it or not, the majority of this video that you're watching right now was scripted out on this iPad mini and typed out on its touchscreen. Tapping on it with both hands is easier than it is on any other iPad since it's so small. You can easily reach all of the letters, but if you have an Apple Pencil 2, it feels weird when your hand is pressing up against the pencil and the mini on the side. And in this situation, it's really easy to disconnect the pencil when you're trying to type with both hands. I'd suggest removing the Apple Pencil 2 if you're typing with both hands. Thanks to the mini's size, it does things in a way that the bigger iPads don't. The iPad mini is easily one-handable. Is that a word? I found it to be fantastic for reading books, scrolling through social media, reading comic books or manga, and it's a nice little YouTube watching or Netflix splurging machine. All those things make the iPad mini a really nice bedside iPad. And I don't know about you, but I'd rather be looking at this at night rather than the small display of my iPhone. Because the iPad mini shares the same A15 chip as the iPhone 13, you're getting great performance out of this tiny little thing. Most games you play and most apps you use should perform pretty good. In my short time with it, I've had no issues with performance and no weird hangs or delays. And because the display is smaller than other iPads, it's also easier to press all the buttons and games on the screen without stretching your fingers awkwardly across a giant slab of a display. So this iPad mini is really similar looking to the iPad Air, right? And if you're watching a review on the iPad mini, you're probably also considering an iPad Air, since it's only one Benjamin more. The iPad mini and the iPad Air have the exact same design, same fingerprint sensor. So what sets this mini apart? What would make someone decide to pick up the iPad mini over the iPad Air? Slightly different specs aside, this may sound like a cliche YouTube tech reviewer answer, but it depends. Do you need an iPad that is a fantastic tablet first beyond all else? Well, there's the iPad Air and iPad Pro 11-inch. Do you need an iPad that is a decent iPad and an alright laptop? Well, then there's the 12.9-inch iPad Pro. Do you need a budget iPad? Well, there's the base model $329 iPad. So, as you can see there, we've covered a lot of different areas and covered a lot of different bases. But we didn't discuss where this iPad mini fits. The iPad mini stands out in two different ways: portability and single tasking. Let's start off with that last one. The iPad Air and iPad Pros are good for multitasking, right? I did a video where I replaced my laptop with my iPad Pro a while back, and overall it was a pretty decent experience. I think I could get away with using an iPad as my computer if I didn't edit videos the way I do. But on the opposite end, the iPad mini is great for single tasking. That's another word that doesn't really exist, but pretend it does for a second. Playing a game, scrolling through Reddit threads, watching Netflix, researching what iPad to buy, visiting OnlyFans for their fantastic cooking content creators. The mini excels at doing all of these different tasks, but only one at a time. And the small screen size actually makes it easier to reach any area of the screen you need easily. While holding the iPad mini comfortably, I can reach half of the entire display with just my thumbs. For comparison's sake, on the 12.9-inch iPad Pro, I can only reach about a third of the display with my thumbs. I can reach different areas of the mini better, but that small screen size also makes it really hard to have two windows open at once without having to shove your face against the display to see what's going on. On the iPad Air and iPad Pros, you can multitask between different apps and see it much bigger. To be clear, I'm not saying the iPad mini can't multitask. It's just harder to, thanks to the smaller display. So now let's talk about its defining feature: portability. I really enjoyed using the iPad mini pretty much everywhere I go. It's so compact that I find it really easy to justify taking with me everywhere. For example, I have this tiny Peak Design pouch that I load up with all my tech gear, and the iPad mini fits in there fine. It also fits in my little sling bag. It fits in my back pockets. I don't know why you would want to do that, but it does fit in there, and is super light in my backpack. I think the iPad mini is the ideal travel iPad. So I guess this is a little tangent, but before our current global situation, I used to take the bus to go to my full-time job, and I would bring my personal laptop or iPad Pro to check emails, read, watch YouTube videos, or do research for these YouTube videos, or to write the scripts of these YouTube videos, right? And honestly, instead of taking my laptop or big iPad Pro, I think I'd rather take one of these guys instead. Combine this form factor and the 5G upgrade, and you have yourself what is pretty much a budget iPhone 13R Max, or whatever Apple would call a budget big iPhone. Maybe I should try to use this iPad as my phone for a month. Let me know if you'd like to see how that goes. I might make that a video. So I think the iPad mini serves a different purpose from the iPad Air or iPad Pro. I think the iPad mini is for people looking for a companion they would use in bed, take with them on their travels, perfect for their kids to use in their hands, and is useful as an entertainment device. Oh, and also it makes a nice little teleprompter for YouTube videos. Okay, conclusion time. Should you buy the iPad mini 6? If you want an iPad for portability, or want to use it as a daily entertainment device, or even as a travel companion, then get the iPad mini. It's so portable and easy to take everywhere you go, with all the benefits of having an iPad. If you're looking for a tablet that is just as great, and want to use it primarily for productivity like schoolwork or multitasking, you might want to pay $100 more for the iPad Air. The ability to use a Magic Keyboard and the bigger screen makes it way more usable for that kind of stuff. For me personally, I think if you got a great use case for the iPad mini and know exactly what you want it to do, it could be a really good fit for you. But it's definitely not for everyone. As for what's best for you, do your own research, because at the end of the day, it's the same old cliche: it depends. I hate using that, but it's true. Either way, I'm sure you're about to watch your next review video on the iPad mini now. Anyway, what do you personally think? Are the portability and compromises and lower price tag of the iPad mini worth it to you? Or would you rather get an iPad Air instead, especially if they decide to upgrade it with the A15 chip? Why did you lean the way that you do? Do Do you think Apple will actually update the iPad mini in a timely manner now, or will they just wait 3 years to do an update again, like they have the last 2 cycles? Let me know in the comment section below, and well, I'll see you all next time. Bye.